I'm a TED Talk addict. I'm that guy, the one who sends random TED Talk links to unsuspecting family, friends, coworkers. They love it. They tell me they love it. So why do I love TED Talk so much? I'm fascinated by fascinating people. I'm a husband, a father, and a chief marketing officer of a software company. I have 3 siblings. One sibling, my sister, is a nurse. Another sister is an accountant. And I have a brother who's a priest. Much to the dismay of my mother, I was never quite the one with the direction like they had, and I was sort of a spectator in my own life. Just sort of taking things as they came. My wife and I got married. We have 3 wonderful daughters, a dog, a house in the suburbs, and when you add in a busy work schedule, pretty much all the bandwidth that we have is taken up. We're busy. And that got very disrupted recently. This past New Year's Eve, when I would normally be preparing to celebrate with friends, I was preparing, as was noted, to go to the South Pole. And it still sounds completely crazy when I say it out loud. It started for me about 12 months ago when I met this man, Robert Swan, the first man to walk unassisted to both the North and South Pole. Robert was speaking at our annual sales conference, and we were talking backstage, and he was talking about his upcoming expedition where they'd be walking 600 nautical miles, which is crazy, from the coast of Antarctica to the South Pole. It would be the first expedition of its kind to rely solely on renewable energy. If you meet Robert, you quickly discover that he's incredibly passionate about saving Antarctica and its natural resources. Whether he's talking to people at the World Economic Forum in Davos or to a group of school children in India, Robert's challenge is for governments, for companies, and for individuals to think differently about the resources that we're consuming on a day-to-day basis. So as we were backstage, we were talking about things, and he was talking about early in his career when he was working with Jacques Cousteau. Now, if you're my age, Jacques Cousteau, everybody I knew growing up wanted to be Jacques Cousteau or Spider-Man. And I wanted to be both. So as Robert was sort of drawing me into his kind of web, he said, you know, we're thinking about having a couple of people join us for the last 10% of the expedition to walk with us 60 nautical miles to the South Pole. Do you think you'd be interested in something like that? He had me at Jacques. So anybody who knows me knows I'm pretty much willing to do anything for a good story to tell. And anyone who knows Robert knows that he's sort of surrounded by this charisma distortion field. If you get too close, you get drawn in and you agree to anything. So after going back and working out a way that Commvault would support and protect all of the data for the expedition, and after speaking to my wife, I found myself preparing to go to the South Pole. So how do you get to the South Pole? So for me, I went from Philadelphia to Punta Arenas, Chile. Once you're there for a couple of days preparing, you board a large transport plane like this one that looks like it's smiling at me. That plane takes you across into Antarctica, where you land on a giant blue ice runway. You spend a couple of days in base camp in Antarctica, and then you take a much smaller plane to the 89th parallel, to 60 nautical miles from the South Pole. This plane flying over the landscape and landing on the ice, it's an undescribable feeling. And when you get out and you bring all the things around you, and you find yourself standing where so few people in history have ever stood, it's just incredible. Then that plane takes off into the distance and actually flies across and then buzzes out overhead, shakes its wings, and it's gone. And you find yourself standing just surrounded by nothing but whiteness. It's more than a little bit scary. My teammates and I, between training the day before at base camp and the next 10 days, were about to set off on a journey that would be walking the distance equivalent to 3 marathons, on skis, on ice, each dragging a 100-pound sled, at an altitude of 10,000 feet above sea level, and in wind chills approaching 40 below zero. Some days it would be bright and sunny like this, where you could manage a speedy 1.7 miles per hour. And I looked up a turtle. Some turtles can walk 3 miles per hour. So that's how fast we were going. And then other days would completely turn. The weather would change to whiteout conditions, and you'd be dropped down to about 1 mile per hour. Truth be told, I loved these days. It was crazy out there. It was really crazy. So why did we do this? Why did we go? Well, to raise awareness. If we could survive in an area like this, the harshest place on the planet with nothing but renewable energy, imagine what we could do back here in our daily lives. Another way that we raised awareness is we answered questions while we were out in this crazy place submitted from school children from all over the world, from India, from China, from here in the United States, from New Zealand. We were able to communicate back using this satellite Wi-Fi. So from within our tents at night, we could send back voice recordings, low-res photographs, text messages. One of the questions that was submitted that for some reason stuck with me is, do we ever think of stopping? And the real answer is yes, like all the time. But when you're out in this kind of place and it's hard and it's cold, but you really don't have any other option but to keep on moving forward. So a lot of people since I've been back have said, how did this change you? And before I went, a lot of folks said, oh, this is going to change you a lot. And I thought, it's not really going to change me. I knew it would be a very good story to tell, but I didn't think it would change me. Truth is, it changed me a lot. When you're out on the ice, you can't help but think about Robert Swan's challenge, about resources. And when you're preparing to go on an expedition like this, you need to make sure that you have everything that you need, all of the gear that you need, and you prepare all of these things, and you need to ensure you have enough resources to survive the journey, but also you don't want to have too much because you're dragging it all on that sled behind you. So you start to be very cognizant of resources, things like gear, very sophisticated gear like socks. I spent more time staring at the sock section of REI than I'd ever care to admit. I had people coming up trying to help me, and it was terrible. Then things like food. We've all heard of the South Beach diet. I was sort of on a South Pole diet. I was consuming 6,000 calories a day, which is about 12 Big Macs and a lot of M&Ms. And I lost 15 pounds in 10 days because I was burning about 10,000 calories a day. Things like water. A lot of people don't think of it this way, but Antarctica is really just a frozen desert. And like any desert conditions, dehydration is a real concern. So each morning and each evening, we had to melt enough ice in order to provide for 3 liters of water in the evening and 3 liters in the morning for each person. This is a solar ice melter that we were testing for NASA. When I think about my time out on the ice and the expedition, and I see all these pictures, I'm reminded that it was just such an incredible opportunity to go to the South Pole. And when you have the opportunity to go to the South Pole and you leave the South Pole, something I learned is it just never really leaves you. And Robert Swan's challenge has been just haunting me, really. The challenge of how do we think differently, working with governments, the companies we work for, and as individuals about the resources that we consume. So I sort of took this on as a personal challenge. In the 4 months that I've been back, I started looking at ways that I can start to act on that challenge. So first, with government, I reached out to my local environmental advisory council and met with one of the local leaders. And she talked to me about what they're doing to protect the local watershed and ways I can get involved. It's amazing things happening that I just wasn't aware of. Then my company, Commvault. Commvault works in data centers with our customers all around the world. What many people don't realize is that data centers consume enormous amounts of energy. In fact, if you took all the data centers around the world and you added them together, they consume more energy than the entire airline industry. If the IT sector was a country, it would be the 3rd largest consumer of energy after China and the United States. So Commvault's bringing together experts from partners, from customers, and from third parties to look at ways that we can lower the average data center's carbon footprint. So what about me? As an individual, what have I done differently? Well, I'm very happy to say that I've just completed officially today 1 month without this, single-use plastic. It's not as easy as it sounds, if it even sounds easy. Next time you go to a grocery store, look around, it's everywhere. We're surrounded by it. Even things we do in our daily lives that we don't necessarily think about, like brushing our teeth. I've spent the last month brushing my teeth with a bamboo toothbrush that's compostable. I started making my own toothpaste out of baking soda and coconut oil. It's awful. But it doesn't use plastic. 80% of the world's plastic pollution is single-use plastic. In 2016, at the World Economic Forum, they announced research that was showing that if plastic pollution continues at the current rate, by the year 2050, there'll be more plastic in the oceans than fish. So, what's my message? It's simple. You don't have to go to the South Pole to make a difference. Anybody can make a difference if we choose to be participants instead of spectators. So, whatever your passion, whether you find it or, like me, it finds you, if you're open to the opportunities and you jump in, we all benefit. Thank you.